Hello everybody, this video is going to be unscripted. It is 10:30 p.m, so apologies for any kind of lack of quality. I want to start this off by saying that I am a nobody. I barely have 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, and of all those subscribers there's like 10 active ones or something. By this I just mean that I am nobody. I have no influence. What I say here will be barely heard, but there's been a big issue with Sony recently. There have been a lot of problems in the game industry, but this one has been upsetting me a lot. It has been upsetting me since this summer, and it currently still makes me very mad, especially since it feels like nobody is talking about this. Now, if you go look on YouTube about Sony and censorship, you will find out that there are people talking about it, yes, but of all these people, there doesn't seem to be anyone influential, anyone who usually speaks up about these issues, and I do get why. This problem currently is affecting only a small part of the gaming community, a niche, we could say. It's not something widespread, and since everybody seems to be talking about stuff like Red Dead Redemption and its microtransactions, or the new PlayStation Mini, which uses an emulator and stuff like that, you know, everybody seems to be talking about this stuff. Nobody is focusing on this, and I do understand why. There's a lot of people out there who, whenever you mention an anime game, they suddenly feel disgusted. What are you talking about? Burn the anime games. Fuck the weebs, right? That is the sentiment that many people have. Not everybody, but it is a problem. Now, I've been talking for 2 minutes and I still haven't got to the point. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, let me explain. This all started months ago. I don't remember if it was summer or if it was, early autumn. The issue is that there was this video game coming out for the PS Vita. That console, haha, so funny, yeah. The game was called Omega Labyrinth Z, a game that came out in Japan. It sold its copies and so on. P-Cube, a publisher, announced a localization for the game. They worked for months on translating it, they were ready to distribute it, normal stuff a publisher does. The problem is that after months of work on this game, and translating a game that has a lot of dialogue does take time, and especially money. After months of work, they decided to release this game, to announce the release and everything, to prepare, And right before the game came out, Sony decided to say, no, wait a second, you cannot release this game. Out of nowhere. They just decided, no, the game can't be released. We do not want this kind of game on our platform. All of this happened after the game was already reviewed. It already got an age rating. It already got, it already got an age rating. That should be enough. If the game has been approved, it got its rating, then good, you can sell it. But no, Sony didn't want to have that game on the platform. Why? Because, it was a game that had a shame break mechanic. It means that sometimes the women in the game would have their clothing removed, when taking damage, stuff like that. And you could pour honey onto them. Wow, right? That's something very upsetting. We would never want to sell something like this. Anyway, my comments aside, Sony decided right before the game came out, with all the work on it done, the localization was over, ready to be released, they decided to pull the plug. They said, no, we cannot allow this to be sold for our system. And so P-Cube was forced to not release the game. And currently, there is no translation for Omega Labyrinth Z, which, for your information, it's basically a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon style game, you know, the one where you explore randomly generated dungeons. If you know Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, since I'm a big fan of those kind of games, even before finding out about all these, ecchi mechanics, I was interested in the game. I wanted to try it out. There aren't many games that follow the Mystery Dungeon formula out there, and I was interested. So I was very upset to find out that, Sony decided the game wouldn't be released out of nowhere. And the reason Sony used was that there was the mechanic that they didn't like, especially because there were quote-unquote younger looking women. Now, I'm gonna keep this argument for later because I do want to address this. For now, let's just say that, yeah, there are younger women, you can see them naked. So we do not want them to release this kind of game. Okay? Okay. And in all of this, the one who lost the most was P-Cube. They already paid someone to localize the game, and that game wasn't able to be sold because one of its core mechanics wasn't okay with Sony, right? Okay. It happened once, fine, okay? There are many other adult anime games out there, just download another, right? No. Actually, that was the first victim, and Sony will be continuing its mass genocide. Why? Because they currently moved their headquarters in California, if I'm not mistaken, and after moving them from Japan to California, rules changed. It has been decided that there would be new policies from now on for all PlayStation titles, no matter what platform they're on. If someone releases a game on a PlayStation, they have to follow these particular guidelines regarding nudity and sexual content. What are these guidelines? Well, they're not really well expressed. Sony actually has been pretty vague about them. They simply do want to limit anything that becomes too sexual, you know? For example, recently, publisher Xseed, who are very popular for their localization of games like the Senran Kagura series, or even more the Trails series, you know, Trails of Cold Steel, Trails in the Sky, the YS series. These are all games by Xseed, so they're not really a nobody. They are a small studio, but they still add some influential games. And what did Sony decide to say? No, in your game that you're gonna release, Senran Kagura, I don't remember the title. Anyway, the latest one that's gonna come out, Burst Renewal, I think. There is supposed to be this mode where you can, grope the various girls, and that's basically it. There is no nudity involved, for your information. And sure, you could say, well, oh my god, that's something for perverts, that's disgusting, that's bad. Okay, fine. You can have your judgment, I respect your judgment. It doesn't matter whether I agree with you or not here. What I'm saying, though, is that the publisher Xseed was forced to remove this feature entirely from the PS4 release. And so they had to remove it and announced the game would be delayed. Now, since it's gonna be delayed on the PS4, the PC release is also going to be delayed. Which sucks, to be honest. The PC release will have that mode though, it's just the PS4 which will get for the same price and an inferior version. Again, who ends up being hurt by this decision? Sony? Maybe, but the ones who are going to be hurt are going to be Xseed, who has to remove the feature entirely, and Marvel's Games, who will distribute it in Europe. Now, I really do not get why something like this should be acceptable, okay? There is no nudity involved, and even if there was, this isn't anything illegal. This isn't anything that, you know, is worthy of being removed. And by illegal, I do not mean that it shows underage girls that you can group or something like this. I mean that it doesn't feature any stolen assets or copyrighted songs, stuff like that, okay? Because remember, doing illegal stuff in a game is different from the game using illegal assets or stuff like that, okay? Or the game itself being illegal. I do want to specify this, keep this in mind, okay? There are two different things, so if your defense is, well, yeah, but you know, in Seiran Kagura games, the girls are 16 years old, so groping a 16 years old girl is something that only pedophiles do. Equals, the game is for pedophiles, that's why Sony is removing it. That's the justification that many people use, and I want you to keep that in a corner, okay? I'm not trying to use bad justifications for this. I'm using the ones that the internet seems to agree with. And not only that, the entire Seiran Kagura 7 game in Japan will have issues being developed because they need to change a lot of stuff about the game because Sony doesn't agree with it. This has been another recent thing. Hell, now I have been quoting these games that not everybody really knows about, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure the first one nobody knew about, Seiran Kagura, maybe. Now, let's talk about another small developer, you know, like Atlus. As you may know, next year, Atlus will be releasing their remake for Catherine, a game that I personally thought was wonderful even before getting into anime or such. It was just a wonderfully styled game with a crazy good puzzle-based gameplay. It was wonderful, okay? I loved it. They're gonna release a remake with a lot of interesting content, and of course, given the very erotic nature of the game, again, there was no nudity, there was nothing of the sort. It was just very, very sexual, you know? Skimpy outfits, Catherine as a character. Now, Atlus has been asked about, you know, censorship. Have you been censoring the game? And to this, on Twitter, we got an answer on, you know, the Studio Zero, who replied to questions on Twitter, said that there are no mysterious lights in Catherine full body, you know, mysterious lights, the ones that you use to lazily censor stuff. We went as far as we could without the light shining. To everyone worried about that, we love you. Now, I'm pretty sure that if you read between the lines, this is a very worrying answer, because I forgot to tell you something. This whole censorship thing, as you may have got from what I've been telling you, is not applied, you know, after a game comes out. It's not like the game comes out, Sony sees what they don't like and they censor it. No, it's actually applied directly during development, which means that even games that come out in Japan by Japanese developers need to be accepted by the American branch, you know, with an application that's been submitted in English by the Japanese developers. That's another crazy thing. You know, not every studio can or should have the burden of having someone write an application in English for the game just to get the approval of Sony. If your game is going to be in Japanese and it's going to release only in Japanese, that's bad. I do not understand why anybody will be okay with this. It's like you're developing a game for a company, right? let's say you're developing a game for the Nintendo Switch, and right after you're done with it, imagine if Nintendo asked you to write an approval request and send it in Japan, and the approval request, by the way, needs to be written in Japanese, and not just translated Japanese. It needs to be written in, well-versed Japanese, because it's a business request. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? Imagine all those indie developers who would need to add to their game, to the cost of their game, the cost of a translator to properly write a goddamn request. It doesn't make any sense, okay? And yet, despite everything, it seems like nobody's talking about this. Nobody's discussing this. Why? Oh, well, because, of course, this time it's Japanese developers who are going under the bus, mostly. So, why should we care, right? I do not understand, honestly. And if you do not so, regarding Catherine, that means that not only we will never know what the original intent for some scenes was, it means that Atlus is trying to show as much as possible without stepping on Sony's foot. It shouldn't be like this. This is directly removing artistic freedom from game developers. This is like going back in the 2000s when, there was all this censorship all over the place, because how dare developers show anything that we don't like, right? These are the examples I have here. Sony's whole new policy is still active and will stay active. Another game that has been hurt by this in a pretty funny way, to be honest, is Nekopara Volume 1. It came out on the Nintendo Switch, on the PC, and the PlayStation 4. On the PlayStation 4, there are scenes that are literally white. For example, there is a popular scene going around of, this girl, this black-haired chick, who is in a very tight bikini, right? And there's no nudity. She's just in a bikini. And in the PC release and the Switch release, the CG is normal. It appears as intended by the developers. But in the PlayStation 4 one, there are 3 massive beams of light shining onto the scene. Because how dare they show breasts? How dare they show her thighs? And most of all, how dare they show that disgusting belly button? I mean, it's absurd. I cannot believe that they really are doing something like this. Now, I've talked about examples enough, and I think it's about time I address what I've been talking about before. The justification. Because you see, many people may go ahead and say, yeah, but as you may notice, all of these games that have been censored involve possibly underage girls. And that's right, that's completely right. But again, you are aware that showing a sexualized underage girls is just as illegal or immoral as committing a mass genocide, I assume. Because if you're going to tell me that showing an underage girl in a bikini is more disgusting than going to school and shooting up the school with a gun or a rifle, well then, I have nothing to say to you. I literally have nothing else to say to you. Because last time I checked, every single first-person shooter on the platform, and many other games that are not first-person shooters, are based on murdering people. Hell, we've seen literally scenes of torture at Sony's E3 conference. Now, why is violence okay and is sexualized content not? Because sexualized content of underage girls in this case, because sexualized content in of itself shouldn't be considered immoral, okay? You should just slap an 18+ rating on it and call it that. There's no more action needed, okay? In case you want to go on the morally correct side and say, yeah, but they're underage girls, Still, I want you either censor that and every single shooter out there, and every single game that features illegal activities in it, or you don't censor any. Because right now, Sony wants to be, you know, the classy ones, the ones that have their The Last of Us exclusives, their exclusives that are all the same, you know, the stealthy gameplay, very, very slow-paced exploration, stuff like that. It's fine, you do you, Sony. But currently, while you know, people shooting each other is fine, it seems like sexualized content is not, and that is an issue. And while you may not care right now because you are not into this content, what will happen once Sony starts doing this to whatever kind of game they want or whatever kind of content they want, you know? Because that may easily happen. Sony can easily say, oh yeah, you know, suddenly we got tired of games where, I don't know, you gamble and suddenly all games can't feature gambling anymore. Hell, we should probably, if Nintendo did something like that, the casinos in Pokemon games should be removed, right? So, I really do not understand. I strongly disagree with this stance, and I am very worried because nobody's talking about this. This video will be watched by barely anybody, okay? If this video manages to get more views than I expect, you know, I expect something like 20. If this video manages to get actual views and manages to get traction, then I'll be happy. If you do want to contribute to it, please share it to something, because this is something that I take at heart, okay? I'm not just talking about this to make controversies. There are probably no ads on this video. If there are ads, I'm sorry, I messed up. I'm not actually partnered with YouTube, so it's not my decision. I should have disabled ads though. And I really do want people to start talking about this, because you cannot go and censor developers directly, taking away creative freedom, and just get away with it. You know, I know, it's the anime content niche. Fuck anime, right? But when it's gonna be your turn, and the content you enjoy that gets censored, well, feel free to go away. Do you remember when The Witcher 3 made headlines because of its, you know, sexual scenes? Well, those can't be in anymore. And if they are going to be in, then it's gonna be an even bigger issues, because that means that Sony is going to straight up play favorites. What if there are sex scenes in Cyberpunk? Do you think those will go well? No, there can't be. New Sony policies, baby. Anyway, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. I just told you that there is an issue. Sony is currently forcing censorship even before games release, and hurting developers in the meantime. I made examples with Catherine, Omega Labyrinth, Seran Kagura 7, and Seran Kagura Renewal, and Necropara. And I also think that I answered most of the big defenses that there are for this, you know? If you do want to play devil's advocate, or if you do have some justification for this behavior, that should be acceptable, by the way, then go ahead, leave a comment. I will be open to answering to your answers and your arguments. I do want to discuss about this, because I am sure that this time I am in the right. So go ahead, feel free to write any comment with your justification for this. And I think I will see you to the next video, because right now there are many issues and I may end up talking about something else. This has been going on for 25 minutes already, so I think I'm just gonna quit. See you next time. And please, really, if you can at least spread word about this issue, do it. We really need to take Sony down a peg. They've been acting a little bit too cocky these last few months. Goodbye.